You want to know the fastest way to kill your potential? Keep chasing lust. Keep thinking with your lower head, because the moment you stop giving into lust, everything changes. Your focus sharpens. Your value rises. Women treat you differently. The world opens up. But most men, they'll never know this. Why? Because they're addicted to weakness, to cheap dopamine, to the illusion of power. You watching this right now, yes you, this video could be the line in the sand. The moment your life splits in two, before and after. Comment, "I choose power," if you're ready to watch this video till the end. This isn't for the faint-hearted. This is for men who are tired of being ruled by urges, for men who are sick of being slaves to their impulses. This is for men ready to reclaim their throne, not in fantasy, but in real life. Lust is not pleasure, lust is weakness. Lust is the leash that keeps powerful men crawling. But when you cut that leash, when you rise above lust, you don't become less of a man. You become the kind of man the world can't ignore. Today I'm going to show you what happens when you walk away from lust, what you gain, who you become, and why the world begins to bend in your favor when you finally say, no more. Number 1, you become dangerous in the best way. You've been told your whole life that strength is about muscle, that being a man is about how loud you speak, how many numbers you can brag about, or how hard you can hit. But I'm here to tell you, none of that makes you dangerous if you're still a prisoner to lust, because the man who hasn't mastered his own hunger will always be controlled by the world. And in every room he walks into, no matter how loud his voice is, you can feel it. The low vibration of weakness, that subtle energy of lack that leaks out of his eyes when he scans the room looking for validation, when he smiles too quickly at a stranger just because she smiled first, when he laughs at things he doesn't find funny because he wants to be liked, when he follows beauty like a moth to the flame, hoping she'll see him, respect him, choose him, never realizing that what he's chasing was never meant to be pursued but attracted by gravity, the kind of gravity that only comes from a man who has centered himself so deeply that he becomes his own orbit. And if you've ever seen this kind of man, you know what I'm talking about, because when he walks into a room, he doesn't need to announce himself. His presence alone speaks louder than 1,000 voices, not because of how he looks, but because of how he doesn't look. He's not scanning for attention. He's commanding it through focus, restraint, posture, and a kind of inner vibration that speaks to every cell in the body of whoever's watching, and they don't even understand what's happening. They just feel it, that this man is rare, and something about him makes the world shift slightly, like nature knows he's there. And this is the kind of power that's born not from control over others, but control over oneself, because the man who has said no to the easiest pleasures becomes the man who can say yes to the hardest paths. And in this world full of cheap temptations, that kind of man is like a sword forged through fire, sharp, still, and almost too powerful to look at directly. And when you stop giving in to lust, not just once or twice, but as a discipline, as a lifelong commitment to staying rooted in something higher than the next urge, you begin to emit a different frequency, one that vibrates above desire, one that calls out to reality itself and says, I'm ready for more. And reality listens, not because you begged it to, but because you finally stopped begging altogether. And when you rise above that neediness, the world begins to unfold in front of you differently. The right people show up, the noise dies down, the chaos outside can't reach you because you've quieted the chaos within. And in that stillness, you start to notice things most men are blind to. The shift in a person's voice when they lie, the hesitation in someone's eyes when they doubt themselves, the shallow roots behind someone's anger, and you become precise, not just in movement, but in thought, in speech, in intention. And this precision, this clarity is rare. And what is rare is respected. and what is respected is followed, and this is why women lean closer when you speak, not because you flatter them, but because they can sense you're not controlled by them, and more importantly, not even by yourself anymore. You've transcended the lower self, the animal mind, and now operate on something far more powerful: vision, values, virtue. And there's a beauty in that, not just to others, but to you, because every day you wake up knowing exactly who you are and exactly who you're not, and the inner conflict that once tore you in 5 different directions no longer exists, because the man you used to be, the one who was always torn between what he wants now and what he wants most, is dead, and in his place is a warrior, not in the way movies show it, with swords and battle cries, but in the way that really matters, in how you choose your words carefully, how you hold yourself with calm certainty, how you stay unshaken when people push your buttons because you have no buttons left to push. And yes, this power will intimidate others, but that's not your concern, because your life stopped being about impressing the world the moment you began impressing yourself. And when you can look in the mirror and respect the man staring back at you, when your own reflection doesn't flinch because he knows you're not hiding anything, that's when you begin to walk with a kind of freedom most will never know, and you begin to love in a way that's not desperate, but discerning. You don't fall into relationships, you select them, because you're not looking for someone to complete you, but someone to build with, someone who's earned access to your energy, someone who understands that your time is your kingdom and you do not give it to the unworthy. And this changes how you see the world. It goes from being something you chase to something you shape, from being a playground of distractions to a proving ground of purpose. And every interaction becomes intentional, every friendship a filter, every decision a test of your alignment. And when you live like this, you stop needing praise because purpose becomes your reward. And if you've ever been addicted to lust, you know it always promises fulfillment and delivers emptiness. It offers pleasure and leaves you numb. But what you may not have realized until now is that lust isn't just an urge. It's an invitation, a test to see if you're ready to live above the animal instinct, to see if you can hold the fire without getting burned, to see if you can be surrounded by temptation and still be untouched. And those who pass this test, they unlock something spiritual, something divine, something that cannot be bought or taught or forced. It's revealed layer by layer as you walk the path few are willing to take. And the further you go, the lighter you feel, because every chain you once wore, shame, guilt, doubt, falls off one by one, and in their place grows a new armor, not to protect you from pain, but to remind you that pain was your teacher, that weakness was your forge, that every battle you fought with yourself was not in vain, because the man you are now is living proof that transformation is real, that evolution isn't a myth, that redemption is available to anyone who's willing to pay the price of discipline. And if you're hearing this and your soul is trembling, if part of you is waking up and saying, "This is who I want to be," then don't ignore that voice. Listen to it, nurture it, let it roar, because the world has enough followers, enough reactors, enough boys in grown men's bodies pretending they've got it all together. What the world needs, what your family, your future, your purpose needs, is you, fully alive, fully engaged, fully committed to living on the highest possible frequency. And that frequency can't be reached through lust. It's blocked by it. And the moment you say, "I'm done letting this own me," you begin to rise. And your rise is what scares the system. Because a man who can't be controlled by pleasure is a man who can't be controlled at all. And that, my brother, is the beginning of true freedom. Number 2, you regain your vision and your mission. There is a moment in every man's life when he realizes that he's been drifting, maybe not visibly, maybe not even consciously, but something deep inside begins to whisper that the days are slipping by, and not in the way they're supposed to. It's the slow erosion of clarity, the decay of direction, and the growing suspicion that he's meant for something far greater than what he's currently experiencing, and that feeling, that itch in your spirit, intensifies every time you close that tab, every time you wipe off shame, every time you feel your energy drop and your confidence shrink from indulging in temporary pleasure that leaves you emptier than before, because lust doesn't just steal your discipline, it poisons your compass, distorts your values, and fogs up the lens through which you're supposed to see the world. And the tragic part is that most men never realize the cost of this fog until years later, when they look back and see how far off course they drifted, and what they could have built, who they could have been, if they had just stayed the course. But by then, the relationships have suffered, the body has declined, the opportunities have moved on, and the only thing left is a haunted version of a man who once had potential but traded it in bits and pieces for digital escapes and emotional sedation. And if that hits something in you right now, that's good, because it means your inner compass is still alive, buried maybe, but alive. And you need to know that this mission you've been ignoring, this call to build, to lead, to master, to rise, is not just a motivational quote or a fleeting ambition. It's the actual foundation of your identity as a man, and the longer you ignore it, the more chaos you invite, not just into your career, but into your relationships, your sense of self, and even your spiritual connection to life itself. Because when you live without vision, you live reactively, and when you live reactively, you're not creating your world, you're surviving someone else's. And the truth that many refuse to accept is this: your inability to resist lust is directly proportional to your inability to stay locked in on your mission. And that's not just a poetic idea, it's a neurological and spiritual fact. You can't channel energy into two contradictory directions at the same time and expect to win. So when you stop allowing lust to hijack your thoughts, your biology, your imagination, something incredible begins to happen. You reclaim bandwidth, you reclaim time, but most importantly, you reclaim your hunger. And I'm not talking about the hunger that leads to mindless grind culture. I'm talking about the hunger that keeps you up at night thinking about the legacy you want to leave. The hunger that makes you sweat in the gym, not for aesthetics, but because your body is the temple of your mission. The hunger that makes you read, study, write, and strategize like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. And this hunger has always been inside you, but lust numbs it, makes you forget what it's like to wake up with a clear goal, to track your progress, to feel the fire of improvement. And one of the most tragic lies we're sold is that peace comes from comfort, when in reality, peace comes from clarity, from knowing what you're here to do and walking in that direction with zero compromise. And when you eliminate lust, not just once, but as a principle of life, you remove one of the biggest distractions from that path, and you'll start to notice changes, not just in how you think, but in how time begins to bend for you. Because when you're aligned with your mission, time no longer feels like a burden, it feels like a tool, and every hour becomes meaningful, every decision intentional, and you begin to separate yourself from the masses in a way that is undeniable, because most men live in cycles: work, distract, repeat. But men with vision create momentum, and this momentum begins with one decision: to no longer give your energy to things that don't multiply your power. And I want you to imagine something right now. What would your life look like if for the next 90 days you channeled every ounce of the energy you've been wasting into building something real? Something you can point to and say, "I did that." And don't tell me you don't know where to start, because deep down, every man has a blueprint etched into his soul, a unique calling that requires silence, reflection, and action to decode. And that calling doesn't come from noise. It comes from inner alignment, and lust is one of the loudest noises in existence. So when you remove it, you begin to hear things you haven't heard in years. Your intuition sharpens, your creativity flows, your dreams return, and you start making moves that don't make sense. to the average man, but feel absolutely right to you, and people will notice. They'll ask what changed. They'll try to replicate it without understanding that what you did wasn't a life hack. It was a life exchange. You traded temporary pleasure for eternal direction, and no one can teach this to you. You have to live it, breathe it, bleed for it, and in doing so, you become the kind of man whose presence inspires others to question their own patterns, whose example challenges people to level up. And when you operate on this level, your circle changes, because weak men can't stand the heat of a man on a mission, and you'll find that the conversations you have evolve from gossip to growth. Your schedule shifts from distraction to domination, and your energy field starts to repel nonsense automatically, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment, because the man who has tasted vision can never again be satisfied with comfort. And if you've ever wondered why life has felt dry, aimless, or numb, it's because your mission has been buried under layers of distraction, and the deepest part of you is starving for a sense of direction. And I don't care if you're 18 or 58, it's not too late. But you must begin now, because time doesn't wait for clarity, and the world won't pause for your awakening. And the more you wait, the harder the climb. So decide today to remove the fog, to reclaim your vision, to lock into the path that demands everything from you and gives you back more than you can imagine. Because when your days are spent in service of something bigger than your urges, your soul rests easier, your nights are quieter, and your future becomes brighter. Not because it's guaranteed, but because you're finally in the driver's seat. And if this resonates with you, don't just listen, act. Because men who delay vision for pleasure always pay twice. First with their time, then with their regret. And you, my brother, you were not built for regret. You were built to lead, to create, to rise, and now is the time to prove it. Number 3. Women treat you differently. Every man has experienced it at least once. The way a woman looks at you when you are no longer seeking, no longer orbiting around her approval, no longer broadcasting need through every gesture and word, but instead radiating something rarer, something most men have forgotten how to access: self-respect, internal congruence, clarity of presence. And it's in that moment, whether on a subway platform, a casual conversation at a cafe, or simply walking past her with zero expectation, that you feel it, that unspoken shift in energy, where she sees something in you that disrupts the usual script of male-female dynamics. Because while other men lean in, you lean back. While others chase, you choose. And this reversal of roles doesn't happen because you've manipulated her perception or learned some social trick. It happens because you have elevated your own vibration to a level where her attention is no longer a reward, but a response. And that difference changes everything. Because when you stop treating women as validation and start treating them as equals, who must earn your energy just like you earn theirs, your entire reality begins to reorganize itself, not just socially, but psychologically, spiritually, and physically. And if you've never lived from that place, you might not believe it's possible, but ask yourself, when was the last time a woman looked at you like she couldn't figure you out? Not because you were pretending to be mysterious, but because you genuinely weren't trying to impress her, because you were already impressed by the direction of your own life. And if the answer is never or not recently, it's not because you're lacking in worth. It's because you're leaking your energy through need, through flattery, through constant attempts to prove you're good enough. And the bitter truth is that women have an intuition for this. They feel it instantly, and they lose respect for the man who walks in seeking her approval rather than carrying his own certainty, because nothing repels the feminine more than a man who treats her like a god and himself like a servant. And I don't mean that in a crude way. I mean that when you pedestalize, you devalue yourself. And what flows from that is not admiration but disappointment, not romance but resistance. Because women want to feel your groundedness more than they want to hear your compliments. And when you've built your life on discipline, on vision, on sovereignty, you start to speak differently, not with rehearsed lines or clever phrases, but with a tone that says, "I know where I'm going." And when you say less, your presence speaks more. And this is the paradox that confuses men, that the less you try, the more magnetic you become, not because you're passive, but because you've mastered the art of directed detachment, where your intention is clear, your boundaries are solid, and your attention is earned, not given away. And the woman who stands before you begins to sense that she's not interacting with another boy hoping to get lucky, but with a man who has standards, depth, and most dangerously, options. And nothing triggers intrigue faster than the sense that a man is not easily swayed, not easily flattered, not easily taken off his path, and yet open to connection, but unwilling to compromise his peace. And this balance of strength and openness, of decisiveness and presence, of ambition and stillness, is what separates the rare man from the average one. And it's not something you can fake, because your entire being broadcasts who you are long before your words arrive, and every choice you make in private builds the vibration you carry in public. So if you're wondering why she doesn't look at you with the same fire she used to, or why she stopped respecting you the way she did in the beginning, you don't need to change how you talk to her. You need to change how you talk to yourself. And this shift doesn't start with her. It starts the moment you begin choosing discipline over distraction, the moment you stop treating attraction as a goal and start treating it as a byproduct of alignment. And suddenly, your entire reality changes, not because you're doing more, but because you've become more. And the beautiful irony is that once you stop needing women to see you, they finally do. And not just any women, the kind of women who respect strength, who value depth, who aren't just looking for entertainment, but for embodiment. And this shift brings a new problem. You start attracting women who want what you have without having earned the right to walk beside you. And you will need to guard your time, because not every smile is a signal, not every compliment is sincere. And the stronger you become, the more the world will test you, not to punish you, but to refine you. And you'll have to learn to say no with kindness, to walk away without explanation, to hold your frame not just when rejected, but when pursued. Because discipline isn't just about denying pleasure, it's about choosing what aligns with your highest self, and that includes relationships. Because if you've been starving for female attention, it's easy to forget that intimacy isn't a reward for suffering, it's a mirror. And the kind of woman you attract reflects the kind of man you are becoming. And when you stop chasing women who drain you, you begin meeting women who challenge you, inspire you, expand you, not because you got lucky, but because you became selective. And this selectiveness isn't arrogance, it's alignment. And once you live from that place, you will never again trade your energy for validation. And the best part is, women respect this more than you know, because every woman who's done her own inner work is looking for a man who isn't controlled by lust, by ego, by impulse, but by purpose. And when you walk with purpose, you don't need to initiate every connection, because your energy initiates it for you. And this is the secret that most dating coaches, pickup lines and tactics will never teach you. That the most irresistible man is not the one who knows the most tricks, but the one who has nothing to prove because he already proved it to himself. And that self-proven man becomes a lighthouse. He doesn't chase ships. He stands tall, unshaken, and allows the right ones to find him. And if you want that kind of life, if you want that kind of relationship, then it begins not with strategy, but with standards, not with seduction, but with self-respect, not with chasing, but with choosing. And the first person you must choose is yourself. Number 4. You build the foundation of unbreakable self-respect. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream or cut, but it lingers in the background of a man's life like static, quiet, constant and suffocating. The pain of living below your potential, of knowing deep down that the man you've been showing the world is not the man you were meant to be. And every time you give in to a habit that chips away at your power, whether it's a late-night scroll, a shallow hookup, a broken promise to yourself, or a moment of weakness, you try to justify after the fact. A little more of your respect for yourself dies, not in a dramatic collapse, but in a quiet erosion, a slow leak of integrity that eventually leaves you empty. And it's not always obvious until one day you wake up, look in the mirror, and realize you don't fully trust the man looking back at you, and that lack of trust, that gap between who you are and who you pretend to be, is the root of so many hidden problems. The anxiety you can't name, the frustration that boils over at the smallest things, the guilt you carry even when no one's accusing you, and the worst part is that it doesn't go away just because you hide it well, because true self-respect cannot be faked or forced. It must be earned, and the only way to earn it is through congruence. When what you say, what you believe, and what you do are all aligned with the man you claim to be, and the foundation of that alignment is built in your private moments, not in front of an audience, but when no one's watching, when it's just you, your thoughts, your temptations, and your choices. And in that sacred space, every decision matters more than you think, because every time you make the harder choice, the one that honors your values instead of your cravings, you lay another brick in the foundation of your character, and over time, those bricks add up, and they create a weight within you. Not a burden, but a gravity, a density that can be felt by everyone around you. Because when you respect yourself, your energy changes, your posture changes. The way you enter a room shifts from trying to prove to quietly commanding. And the irony is that when you reach that level, people will start asking how you did it, expecting you to reveal some tactic or routine. But the truth is far more personal and far more powerful. It was the decision to stop betraying yourself, to stop making exceptions for mediocrity, to stop selling out your future for fleeting comfort, and you start to realize that the man you admire most isn't a celebrity or influencer. It's the version of yourself that exists on the other side of consistent discipline. The man who says no not because it's trendy or performative, but because he's rooted in purpose. And when you meet that version of yourself, even in glimpses, something irreversible happens. You begin to demand more, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that refuses to settle, because now you've tasted what it feels like to live with dignity, and nothing tastes better than that. And people will call you intense, maybe even cold, because they're used to the watered-down version of masculinity that society promotes, one that's agreeable, compliant, easy to mold. But you weren't born to be moldable, you were born to be unshakable, and that starts with the standards you hold yourself to when no one else is checking, because your standards aren't for show, they are the scaffolding of your soul, and you begin to see that every little compromise you used to make, staying up late when you said you'd sleep, indulging in quick pleasure when you knew it would weaken you, letting emotions dictate your actions, wasn't small at all. It was a message you were sending to yourself that your word means nothing, and if your word means nothing to you, it will mean nothing to others, because you can't expect the world to respect a man who disrespects himself. And this is where the real transformation begins. Not with changing the world, but with changing the way you show up in it. And it doesn't require a total overhaul overnight. It begins with one decision, repeated relentlessly, to become the kind of man whose presence is earned, not assumed, whose voice carries weight not because of volume, but because of virtue. And in that journey, you will find that self-respect isn't something you arrive at. It's something you cultivate, nurture, protect, and renew daily through your habits, your honesty, your courage, and your refusal to live below the standard you know you're capable of. And as you build this foundation, brick by brick, you start to see the ripple effect it has on everything. your relationships become deeper, not because you're better at talking, but because you're better at listening, and people feel safe in your presence, not because you say the right things, but because they can. Sense you don't lie to yourself, and that creates trust, magnetism, impact, and over time, you start to carry a quiet pride, not the kind that shows off, but the kind that stands firm when tested, that doesn't flinch when challenged, and doesn't collapse when life gets heavy, because you've built yourself on principles, not popularity, on discipline, not dopamine, on alignment, not applause. And that kind of self-respect changes the trajectory of your entire life, not because it guarantees success, but because it makes you the kind of man who cannot be destroyed by failure, and that more than anything is what will separate you from the average. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of a foundation so unshakable that no matter what life throws at you, you bend, but you don't break. You feel, but you don't fold. You adapt, but you don't abandon yourself. And in the end, when people ask what it means to be a man, you won't point to words or titles or achievements. You'll point to your life and let the way you've lived speak for itself. I'm putting together the most powerful, step-by-step relationship guide for men that's ever been created. Built entirely on timeless Stoic principles, it will show you exactly how to reclaim your masculine power, transform the way you carry yourself, and become the man who commands respect, attraction, and peace in every area of life. This isn't feel-good fluff. This is a battle-tested blueprint for the man who's ready to rise, designed to sharpen your focus, elevate your standards, and teach you how to build relationships from a place of strength, clarity, and unshakable confidence. If you want me to send you the ebook the moment it drops, comment "Blueprint" below. Subscribe to the channel, share this message with the men who need it, and stay locked in. Because this movement isn't just about videos, it's about changing lives.